Ecofeminism brings into awareness the way that women, animals, and nature are conceived of and treated in our culture. So women, animals, and nature are all linked in terms of the way we think about them, the words we use, and then also the way that they're exploited. So if you think about how we define male versus female, and how women are seen as more emotional, more connected to the body, which all has to do with being more animalistic in terms of how we think. And then the earth is seen as...
You're listening to the Plant-Based Eating for Health podcast show. I'm your host, Kathleen Gage. We're here to plant seeds on compassion to animals, your health, and the environment, and topics related to business that align with all three of those areas. Enjoy the show. Well, today I have a very unique guest, and I have to say I'm really excited to be talking with her because there's a lot that I align with on her whole mission, and I have a lot of questions that have been unanswered, and today I hope to get those answered. With that, I'm pleased to welcome Charlotte Cressey, who is with the Vegan Paradigm, and she has been vegan for many, more than half her life, more than 90% of her life, actually. And Charlotte, it's great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much, Kathleen. It's great to be with you.
You know, I was reading through your information and I listened to some podcasts that you'd been on, and our good friend Sandra, she introduced us. And so I know that you are definitely the real deal of vegans. And you started much younger than most people. It was when you were 3 years old. You were actually at the dinner table, I believe. Why don't you tell people about how you first identified as somebody who couldn't consume animals?
Sure. Yes. So my best friend, and really almost my first mother in a way, was our dog Whimsy. Because before I spoke English, I actually communicated through my eyes. And I really felt this deep connection with our white German Shepherd. And so I was communicating what I would call the language of love that we all speak. And I started to realize then, once I could speak, and the toys that I had were the same names as the things on my plate. So I was getting confused because my parents treated Whimsy like a firstborn daughter. And she was, her needs mattered, all that kind of stuff. And that resonated with me, of course, as it does with all children. And I just started making the connection between those toys that you pull and it says, what does the cow say? Moo. What does the chicken say? Bok, bok, bok. And I couldn't believe it. I was just shocked. Like, this didn't make sense, that what my family, my loving parents, were serving me was actually a dead animal. And so I sincerely wanted to know, did the cow have to die for me to eat this? Because I was really hoping that there was some other secret to serving me something with that name. And so, yeah, it started when I was 3, just out of that natural sensitivity.
And it was 12 years old is when you identified fully as a vegan. Did you know the term vegan at that time, or was it just that you completely went over that invisible line from somebody who might have been consuming some animal products without even knowing? Fill me in the gap between 3 years old and 12 years old.
I would love to. Thanks for asking. Yeah. So I had this natural inclination to not want to eat animals. And when I was very young, around 3, I wanted to not eat any dead animals. And my parents and pediatrician didn't know anything about nutrition and pretty much forced me to keep eating chickens and turkeys. But I absorbed what I call the disembodied logic. So thinking and rationalizing what we're doing to take us out of the feeling state, because we have this natural connection to animals. So my mom would frequently say chickens are stupid or turkeys are stupid, to try to encourage me to eat them. And then one day after church, there was an adult offering me something and they said, "Oh, are you vegetarian?" And I remember looking up and saying, "No, I eat chicken because they're stupid." And it came out of my mouth. And then I went home and I remember going to my little white desk and writing, because I always would write to think through things. And I was like, wait, I don't believe that. What am I going to do? Okay, tonight at dinner, I'm not going to eat meat, and I like I always wanted to be a good girl, didn't want to break the rules, but I decided that even if my parents gave me a timeout to think about like disobeying them, that I was not going to eat the animals. Luckily, they were somewhat open to it. But so it started naturally when I was 7, I started to hear the word vegetarian. And then when I was around 9, someone gave me some literature from PETA. So I started educating myself at age 9, and my parents didn't stop me from ordering everything. This was before the internet, and I would write away for VHS tapes of the slaughterhouse footage and factory farm footage. And so I knew I wanted to become vegan, and it was gradual. I stopped buying leather when I discovered vegan Doc Martens through vegetarian shoes in the early 90s, mid 90s. It was about 1995. And then I had an experience when I was 13 where a goat was slaughtered right in front of me, and every cell in my body wanted to go save her. And I was yelling and she was screaming, and I was physically, my dad stopped me from going and saving this goat, and I had this warrior energy come over me, and it was like all my adrenaline pumping, and I was like, I'm vegan now. And it was like this like new sense of mission and what I would do. I just decided I'm going to do this for the rest of my life, devote myself to saving as many animals as possible. Yeah, so it was a big shift.
It's really interesting because a lot, there were a lot of bad things that happened as a result of the pandemic, but I think the greatest thing that happened as a result that was a positive is the awareness around veganism. I started in 2018, so I was a late bloomer. I started when I was 64, and the longest term vegan I know, he's 73 years old, and he was born vegan. He was born to vegan parents. He runs the National Health Association, Mark Huberman. I know a lot of vegans that are 50 years plus on veganism, and it's just like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. Because up until I really started researching more on health issues around what I was eating, I didn't realize there was so much of a movement around veganism. But it's interesting because I've been on a spiritual quest, as I mentioned, since my early 20s. And so, we're going nearly 50 years that I've been on this conscious quest of like, what's the meaning of life? How do I connect with spirit? And on and on. I mean, I've meditated on pyramids. In Mexico, I did. In Egypt, I did. I mean, I just was always like on a quest. And it took me until I had just this visceral response at the grocery store one day after I quit eating meat. I was walking by the meat department, and I just had this sadness and this grief and this terror and fear just come over me. And I thought, that's what the animals have gone through. And so I'm curious why it takes some of us so long. It didn't take you that long, but it takes a lot of us a long time. And even quote unquote spiritual people, they will consume animals and they justify it. So how do you address that?
Well, before I answer, I want to say I'm so happy that you're part of the vegan movement and doing your great work to spread the good word.
Thank you.
Yes, yay. So yeah, I think that it's an invisible system where we are encouraged not to look at these deeper issues because it's a behavior that has been forced upon us almost against our will. It's a system we're born into, but it's completely contrary to what it means to be human because we are naturally humane. Cooperation and empathy is really the operative force in the body. That's how, the cells communicate. That's how larger organisms, communities, ecosystems, the whole planet, we all get along, by cooperating, we're actually able to evolve. And what we now know is that cooperation is the most adaptive response to life. And so your question about why do people not get it earlier?
Yeah,
Well, there's so
and
much
some don't even get it.
us.
Yeah, some don't get it, and it's the same in the pet industry. Like I actually worked in the pet industry. It was kind of a divine
Mm.
intervention that I ended up there. It was through a rescue dog, and did a crowdfunding, and one thing led to another, and I started working quite heavily within the pet industry. And a lot of people in that industry, they rescue animals, they veterinarians, they fix animals, and yet they consume animals. So I'm just kind of
Yeah.
curious, why did it take me so long? And why is it that some people never seem to get it?
Because it's the most entrenched, invisible
Mm,
belief system that everyone is in agreement that we don't talk about this. It is the most, it's the most powerful, and it's what I call the dominator paradigm. It's the most powerful belief system, and it's what I call the inner glass ceiling of meat eating. It's like this, it's this invisible system where we've all collectively agreed, don't dream about a better world. Don't dream for a better life for yourself. How dare you to question these things and to try to go higher as a human,
mhm.
as an individual? There's a lot of pushback when it comes to questioning anything, but especially this belief system, the dominator paradigm, because people feel so badly when they actually, some part of them, like you mentioned Carl Jung, like there's different parts of the self. Some part of them is like aware, so they're aware that they're eating dead animals, and so
Mhm.
everything in your mental capacities will be working against looking at that truth, because it would cause such an upset in your family system to go against the grain, in your society, I mean, in your environment and in the culture. It's so hard to step outside of the box. And
Right.
there's this great quote that the opposite of courage is not cowardice, it's conformity.
Ooh,
So,
ooh,
yeah,
say that again, please.
the opposite of courage is not cowardice, it's conformity.
Wow, I just got the God bumps on that one. That is, I love that. I love that.
Yeah, so taking a creative approach to life and being nonconformist, choosing to do something different, is definitely not encouraged. But also, because this belief system is tied into so many of the other social agreements we have about not challenging the status quo, it can be hard to see. And then your question about the spiritual community, because there are so many people who are so-called leaders in that realm who haven't looked at it, don't want to look at it, give permission, spiritual permission to just continue on and look the other way. Um, of course, it's very easy for then the followers or truth seekers, such as ourselves, wanting to learn more, looking to those people for guidance. And I've questioned live in person some of the spiritual teachers of our time, like Deepak Chopra,
Mhm.
at events. And then I've heard other people doing similar things. Of course, Thich Nhat Hanh is vegan, and um, it's generally overlooked though. But Deepak Chopra, of course, gave this very like uh, side way of answering. He didn't answer me directly about
Right,
the
right.
morals.
It's like, oops, I'm on the hot seat. It's like,
Yeah,
yeah,
he went on some tangent about sustainability and how they're capturing methane, like making it more sustainable. It's like, no, let's not kill the animals. Like, how
right,
does that
right.
impact our spirituality?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. It's pretty simple. So, so
Yeah.
before we go on, Charlotte, how do people find you? What's the best web address to go to?
Thank you for asking. Theveganparadigmshift.com.
Okay, the veganparadigmshift.com, and we'll make sure to put that in the show notes. And I really want to dig into your whole spiritual side, because um, you are a spiritual teacher. You speak at conferences. You're an author, and you didn't just one day wake up and say, "I think I'm going to be a spiritual teacher because I think that's the cool thing to do." You actually started this. I would say that day that you were at the dinner table or the lunch table, and you said, am I eating a cow? And there was a connection that happened. And what I know to be true about spirituality is it comes in waves. It's not like all of a sudden the water parts and, oh, the angels sing from the heaven. It's like different things that open up to us. So you've actually studied under, I believe, Deepak, you under Bob Proctor. You've done a lot of work on both the, if you will, the physical level and the spiritual level. So talk to us about your journey through becoming the teacher that you are.
Thank you. Yes, you're right that was really the beginning of the journey, was starting to ask questions when I was very young. And I was always aware that there's more to life than the physical. I had that inclination. It was just natural to me, as well as the fact that my parents were spiritual. And I always felt connected to the other realm. And the big thing for me was actually death, and developing a comfort with death as a young girl. When animals, I grew up kind of out in the country, and when animals would hit the window or there would be some animal in need, I would always try to help them. And it just came naturally to me to pray with them and then even give them a burial.
Mm-hmm.
And I was always just wondering about, like, does the grass have a soul? And would it be a group soul or a single soul? I was just always thinking about these things. And then I also would hear things. So I grew up in a house that was haunted.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was aware of the spirit who is there, Mrs. Saragusa. And this was later verified by two different adults on different occasions who saw her. There's no way they would have known, like, what she would be like in her wheelchair, like the way she appears. And so I never saw her, but I had these encounters.
Right.
And so so basically it really started from an awareness that life is not just this like physical, tangible world, right? So that's really how it started. And then, like I shared about my vegan mission, really activating me as a young teenager, then I realized, okay, this is good. The vegan aspect is really important, but I'm not going to be effective if I don't learn how to be the best person I can be. So then I got into yoga and meditation. I really have been on a quest to improve myself, because I had a lot of my own mental blocks. It's not like, and I always, I'll always hopefully be improving and progressing and developing. I've developed my theories just in response to trying to be better, and not better in like just a perfectionistic sense, but more so like to be more loving, more kind, improve my communication, all those things. And I realized, though, early on, I'd have to change myself if I want to change the world. And then in the vegan movement, I realized that there was no personal development system. There was no vegan personal development system out there, right? And then I also studied what is going on in the animal rights movement. Why have we not been effective? It's such a simple idea, so profound. The time has come. What is needed? Where's the gap? So I realized the gap in the movement was to speak our truth, not go for haphazard approaches and half measures, like blessing people who want to work on the bigger cages, but I want to get to the root cause of the way we relate. So then in my early 20s, I decided to really even go deeper and figure out all the deeper spiritual aspects and the philosophies like ecofeminism. And so it's all been driven by my own quest.
I want to know what ecofeminism is, because I saw that on your website, and so much of what you have on there I can definitely relate to. It resonates with me. It aligns with the direction my life has gone. But I'm curious, what is ecofeminism?
Ecofeminism brings into awareness the way that women, animals, and nature are conceived of and treated in our culture. So women, animals, and nature are all linked in terms of the way we think about them, the words we use, and then also the way that they're exploited. So if you think about how we define male versus female, and how women are seen as more emotional, more connected to the body, which all has to do with being more animalistic in terms of how we think. And then the earth is seen as separate and below heaven, and this was all developed in relationship with with religions as well. And these sky gods that came in a few thousand years ago instead of the earth goddess in the trajectory of religion, we went away from worshiping the material, the physical, seeing the sacred in this realm, and this kind of separation from nature, and seeing thought more associated with the male, and culture and civilization being better than nature, women and animals. And then women, animals, and nature are objectified and linked and used, seen as resources for their reproductive capacities, the way that women are objectified and seen as sex objects, and then the way that we do that to animals, and the focus on the reproductive systems with dairy and eggs is a part of vegan ecofeminist theory as well.
Interesting. Well, you know, the dog that actually was responsible for me getting in the pet industry, she ended up on our property. We live in an area where people, they just throw away their animals, and you know, which is very unfortunate, but many have ended up on our property. And her name was Delaney. We named her Delaney. And it turns out she was about 10 years old. She was a puppy mill breeder dog. She was flat on one side because she had been in a cage all her life. She had a hip that had been broken, never healed properly. She had rotted out teeth. We really thought we were going to have to put her down. She had tumors all over her belly. And so we thought, okay, we're going to give her a real good quality of life for a few days. And we took her to the vet and said, okay, what can we do? And they said, you know, her blood work came out great. If you do some surgeries on her, she actually will have a great quality of life. And I thought, you know, for 10 years, she's lived in a cage. She's been abused. She's been used. She's been just violated in every sense of the word. And I thought, okay, let's give her a quality of life, even if it's for a month. And it turns out she was with us for 4 years. Well, I did a crowdfunding and I said, I've got this digital program because I'm a digital marketer. So I created a digital program and I said, if you donate, you'll get the digital program and then we'll pay for the surgery for Delaney. And I was shocked at how many people just gave and gave and gave. So we got the surgery, the rest got donated to an animal sanctuary. And somebody saw me on the internet and said, we'd like you to come and speak at this pet conference. And that was kind of my inroad. And I thought, that little Delaney, she's a little spirit guide all the way. And she's still with me. She's like my total heart dog. But I'm curious, in your business, you have the name, tell me the name of your program that you've got, because I wrote it down.
The vegan paradigm shift.
The vegan paradigm
but maybe
shift.
you're thinking of animal totems.
Well, let's talk about animal totems and then let's talk about the vegan paradigm shift. What are animal totems?
They're the archetypal energies of animals. So across time, humans have developed collective consciousness that we tap into when we're thinking about an animal, and it's all in our mythology. And when you experience an animal, it's not like it's just by chance, at least in my point of view about the way life works, there's like this larger tapestry of life. So if there's a fly in your house that keeps visiting you, or let's say it's a squirrel that you keep seeing, or many squirrels, there's always a meaning and a message if you choose to listen to it. And this is part of the beauty of the other side of connecting to animals. It's not just that they're screaming out and crying in the slaughterhouses and trying to, they're refusing to get on the trucks. The ways they're speaking in myriad ways all the time, resisting the violence, right?
Mm-hmm.
But on the other side, they're also guiding us at all times. And so some people call it a spirit animal or power animal. And my approach is different than most. Most people who get into this will, go for the most flashy and big and be like, oh, I'm a lion, or I'm a tiger, which is great. That's beautiful. And they have immense power, but it's often the most simple. And for me, one of the animals that came to me was the snail to teach me about divine timing.
Wow. Okay. I have a question because I have a little mouse that comes in, and I've only seen my little mouse once. And we live in a very rural area. We've got horses, rescue horses. We've got chickens, rescue chickens. We've got a rooster, rescue.
Yeah.
They're all rescues. And I had somebody once say, well, why would you have chickens if you're vegan? And it's like, oh no, we're not eating the chicken. We're giving the chicken a great life. But this little mouse came to visit, and I saw him scurry across inside the garage, and he scurried away, and I thought, oh, little dude, it's like, please don't come in the house, please, that's not cool. And we recently had to let go of our cat. He went over the Rainbow Bridge, but I know that he comes and he gets some of the chicken feed, and I can see when he's been there and everything. So I talk to him. So what does a mouse mean? It's like he's quiet. He doesn't show himself very much. And I'm just kind of curious, what would be the message that I'm getting from because it's like, I don't have the heart to do anything to harm that little sweet guy. And I've only seen him once, but I know that, it's kind of like we've got this relationship going on. And I'm like, well, this is kind of interesting.
I love it. Yeah, well, the first way we start is observing the behavior. Like you said that he's quiet, right? And so before you jump into looking up, what does it mean? What does it represent to other people? We observe the behavior and what it means to us. And so you also mentioned that there's this cat mouse kind of connection here. Often with an animal, it will be the predator or prey that is also speaking to us. So like with skunks, the owl is also being called in sometimes. And but with the mouse, they represent fastidiousness, at least to me, and getting things right and making a home and doing our best with the resources we have. I think they also have to do with shrewdness because they're pretty adaptable. So I would say, as you continue to notice when she shows up, or he, and see if it's a certain time of day and what she's up to.
It's usually in the middle of the night. It's because I can tell that she's been in, she leaves the little sunflower seeds eaten up, and it's like, okay, I'll make sure to leave some for her. And it's so interesting because I want to make sure she's okay. And I don't want to do anything to bring harm to, and that tells me I'm going to a deeper level of what it means to be a vegan, because in the past, I wouldn't have responded the same way. It would have been like, oh, get that mouse out of here. And now it's like, oh, no, we can't harm the mouse. And so I just kind of ignore the fact that she's been there, but I make sure she has what she needs.
I love it. Yeah, one of the ways we think about different animals is first observe the behavior, then ask yourself what the meaning is, or look up the meaning if you want to. If you're like, oh, I don't know what it means. So you look it up. Then the basic kind of question you ask yourself is, am I being overly fastidious in certain ways? Or let's say that fastidiousness is the keynote. I don't know. I actually don't know off the top of my head about the mouse. I know that for me, I would have my own really positive associations with my own past experiences with mice. So it also depends on your personal history. But then whatever the trait is, though, you ask yourself, am I being too much of this, or is this a call to be more of it? And
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to remind people you're listening to the Plant-Based Eating for Health podcast show. I am your host, Kathleen Gage, and I encourage you to subscribe to this channel wherever you're listening and leave a rating and a review. And I'm talking with Charlotte, who is with the vegan paradigm. It's like I don't have my glasses on, so I can't read my writing. So, but let's talk about how you came to create the vegan paradigm, what it is, and then let's talk about how you work with your clients.
Yes. Well, as I mentioned, there is no personal development system that puts veganism as the foundational way that we relate. So everything in life is the way that you relate to life. So if you want to create more success, you have to get to the root level of how you're relating to life, to yourself, to your thoughts, to others. And oftentimes people go straight for changing behavior without actually changing the more deep aspect of your definition of yourself. So we start there because we've been brought up in a world that tells us that we should subscribe to the might makes right mentality. There's a bias towards seeing ourselves as man the hunter. We think that war is normal, and that ends up coloring the way that we relate to life. So we often think that we have to be in these one up, one down we see each other, we see others as adversarial, and it may not be conscious, but this is what happens. And then when it comes to self-improvement, we often have that internally, and we have like the inner critic or inner like slave master. And there's often, when it comes to creating transformation, we motivate ourselves with cruelty. So we set that aside completely with the vegan paradigm shift. We learn a new self-definition that we are actually love embodied, love incarnate. And you've probably experienced this empathetic nature if you see someone stub their toe, how it feels like, oh, it's like, oh, it feels like it's happening to you. Or you see someone get hurt, or you see someone doing great and you see someone winning, and or someone like just loving life. And it's like, yes, I don't know about you, but sometimes for me, when I'm out just in nature, because I spend a lot of my time on the trails, when I just see an animal like enjoying their day, I really feel it in my body. I'm
Right.
like, yay. And so that's really the nature of life, is creating this flywheel of positivity that's just self-fulfilling, self-perpetuating. And that's how we're going to create a vegan paradigm shift. And so the Vegan Paradigm Shift program is a personal development system. And the goal is to help people make this shift internally. And it's a system that allows you to take any area of your life, whether it be in the area of health, relationships, purpose, power, your sense of agency, or your spirituality. And we use this new way of relating to help you manifest what you want to create.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And now I read somewhere that you do 800 miles or 800 hours on trails every year. Is that true?
If I wrote it down somewhere, it's probably true. I calculated it at some point.
What does
I
that
spent
equate to? How much time a day or a week do you spend out in nature?
when I'm at home, I'm currently in Chicago, so I was out 2 hours yesterday, only 35 minutes today in the rain. But at home, usually I like to be out for 2 to 4 hours.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
That works. That
Yeah.
works. It's like me working in my garden. We have 5 acres. And so there's plenty to do out in nature here. And I just love digging in the dirt. It's like I would much rather spend 3 or 4 hours digging in the dirt than going to a shopping mall. It's like I can't even imagine that anymore. I used to love to go to malls, and now it's like, oh, no, 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 don't want to do that. But so how can people find your program? What's the easiest way?
Thank you. The easiest way is veganparadigmshift.com. Shall I spell it out?
No, you can spell it out because some people might be listening to this and they want to get a pen and write it down. So go get your pen and write this down. Go ahead.
VeganParadigmShift.com, veganparadigmshift.com, or the veganparadigmshift.com. And there's lots of offerings as well if people want one-on-one coaching. I also help people figure out what makes them fascinating and helps you learn your highest and best value in different situations wherever you go. So yeah.
Okay. And if somebody wanted to work with you, what are the different types of service offerings that you have for people? I know that you have a discovery call. They can go on your website. They can sign up for a 15-minute discovery call, which I highly encourage people to do that, because if you are a vegan and you're feeling like there's got to be more to this, this would be a great entree into discovering that. If you're somebody who's sitting on the fence and you're thinking, I really know that in my heart of hearts, consuming that meat and dairy and fish and bird, whatever it is, I know that it's not the right thing for me to do, then I would encourage you, give Charlotte a call, set up a discovery call, and dig deeper into who you are. So what are the different levels that people can work with you on?
Everything from individual to group coaching to the online course. So I really offer a interfaith approach, and I like to get to know the person, and multimodality approach as well. So that discovery call where we find out what you're into, what you want to manifest, what you want to change. And then I have a whole array of different things. I love to do guided meditations for people, recording something that you listen to really shift at the subconscious level, because that's where most of our behavior is motivated from. And I also offer yoga, earth energy yoga recordings for people. I've done a lot of customized yoga routines. And then there's also coaching where we work on something you want to manifest with the premise that you're the expert. So with all the time I've spent in the realm of self-development, I'm a big believer in a coaching approach that encourages the client to be at the helm and be in charge. So I'm never here to tell you what to do, or like the topic that you brought up, Kathleen, of veganism. I'm not like a vegan boot camp coach to like force you to go vegan or force you to do anything you don't want to do. What I do is I create a space for you to discover the answers, and we draw those out and help bring forth your best and highest self.
I love that, because it truly is about discovering who we are and letting that unfold, and letting spirit, life, universe work through us so that we can do what we're here to do. Because if we force a change, there's a really good chance that we're going to go back to old behaviors. And, in my life, I've done many, many spiritual practices, but the two that really have solidified who I am as a person, one is I went into recovery 41 years ago for drugs and alcohol, and haven't touched a drop since that time. And I've had people say, wouldn't one be okay? And it's like, why would I even explore that? It's not a part of who I am anymore. And the second part is when I went vegan, and when I identified as vegan. I was plant-based initially. I would not call myself vegan because I thought vegans were crazy. Then I found out we are, and that's okay. But once I crossed that invisible line, it's like, there's no question in my mind that this is the person I am meant to be. And it's kind of exciting, because I wonder what's the next unfolding that will come. Because as I look at, you look at the average length of time that people live, and according to the charts, I have about maybe 8 or 9 years left. And I'm like, that's interesting. What am I going to do with that 8 or 9 years? And it could be 20 years. It could be 3 years. Who knows? But it's really creating so much value for today. So what are your final thoughts for people as they're exploring their own spirituality, the possibility of possibly going deeper into being a vegan, or even becoming a vegan, and not even identifying as such, just that they're going to release certain things that no longer serve them? So what would be your final thoughts for people?
To listen to your heart. I know that in your heart of hearts, you know what's best, and really let that be your guiding light.
I love it. I love it. And, I normally don't ask people to do this, but I was wondering if you would do a blessing for the animals, some kind of, it could be a prayer, it could be a meditation, but just something to send out the energy for the healing of the planet, the healing of the animals, and the healing of people's consciousness, so that they're more aware of the choices they make on a daily basis. Would you be willing to do that?
Please, yes. In this now moment, we set everything to one side and become fully attuned to each other across time and space, moving from the mundane into the extraordinary, where everything is possible, knowing that we have the power to define the 21st century. We have the power, as the ones who have been tapped on the shoulder with this message of love and kindness, to awaken and share this love and reciprocity with all life. So we see our consciousness going around the world, sending it out from wherever you are right now. See it extending to the corners of the room, and then to your city or metropolis, wherever you are, and then to your state, and then to your country. And then see this love vibration going around the world, connecting with everyone listening to this podcast as well, and feeling this love field becoming more and more powerful, affirming to the animals that we are listening. We are listening to your guidance to help awaken humanity and move to that next level of love and reciprocity. And we see this world where all are free. We see it and we're creating it. All beings happy, hopping, leaping, skipping, dancing. We see it. We are dwelling there more and more every day. In fact, we can even hear that vegan world, that heaven on earth breathing. It's so close, and it's up to us to live as love from here on out.
Mm.
Amen. A woman, so it is, and so it shall be.
And so it is. Thank you so much. Well, Charlotte, this has been delightful, and I encourage people to definitely visit your website at The Vegan Paradigm and The Vegan Paradigm Shift and check out all the resources. Set up that 15-minute discovery call and check out the program. And Charlotte, keep being your amazing self. Keep doing the work that you're here to do. And may you be blessed in all that you do. And to the people listening, thank you for tuning in to the Plant-Based Eating for Health podcast show. I'm your host, Kathleen Gage, really wishing you an abundant life, a compassionate life, and one filled with health in mind, body, and spirit. Have a great day.
Thank you, Kathleen.
You've been listening to the Plant-Based Eating for Health podcast show. I'm your host, Kathleen Gage, inviting you to subscribe to this channel wherever you're listening or watching the show. And please let your friends know about the Plant-Based Eating for Health podcast show. Live healthy.